Veltar stood in the bright white room of the Galactic Council building. His long, thin fingers shook as he held the data pad. The words on the screen made his stomach feel sick. He was being sent to watch humans fight in their war. "You will observe their battle methods," said Council Leader Zephyros. The old alien's voice was calm and cold. "We need to understand how these creatures fight. They are new to our galaxy, but they seem very violent. Veltar's people, the Ethereals, had not fought wars for thousands of years. They solved problems with words and wisdom. Violence was something they read about in old history books. The idea of watching real fighting made Veltar feel afraid. "Why me?" Veltar asked. His voice was quiet and nervous. "You study how different species behave," Zephyros said. "You are young and can learn quickly. The humans have agreed to let one observer on their ship. You will go and come back to tell us what you see." 3 days later, Veltar found himself floating in space inside a small transport ship. Through the window, he could see the human warship getting bigger and bigger. The ship was huge and gray, with weapons sticking out from its sides like metal teeth. The name on the side said, "Teguk's Pride," in bright letters. Veltar's transport ship docked with a loud clang. The doors opened with a hiss of air. A human in a blue uniform was waiting for him. The human was tall with dark hair and kind eyes. He smiled when he saw Veltar. "Welcome aboard," the human said. "I am Captain Jiho. You must be our observer, from the Galactic Council." Veltar was surprised. The captain's voice was warm and friendly. This was not what he expected from a violent warrior. "Yes, I am Veltar. I am here to watch and learn about your military ways." Captain Jiho nodded. "We are happy to have you. Come, let me show you around our ship." As they walked through the metal halls, Veltar saw many humans working. They all looked busy, but not angry or mean. A young woman with short black hair walked up to them. "This is Lieutenant Nari," Captain Jiho said. "She plans our battle moves and helps us fight smart, not just hard." Nari smiled at Veltar. "Nice to meet you. I heard you want to learn about how we fight. I hope we can teach you something useful." Veltar was confused. These humans seemed nice and normal. Where was the savage violence he had heard about? They continued walking and met more crew members. Sergeant Do-hyun was a big man with strong arms and a rough voice, but he gently helped Veltar when the alien had trouble walking on the metal floors. Dr. Hyemi showed Veltar the medical room where they healed sick and hurt people. She explained how they saved lives during battles. "We do not like fighting," Dr. Hyemi said, as she showed Veltar the medical tools. "But sometimes we must fight to protect people who cannot protect themselves." That evening, Captain Jiho invited Veltar to eat dinner with the crew. The dining room was filled with laughter and talking. Humans shared stories about their families back home. They showed Veltar pictures of their children and talked about their hopes for peace. "Why do you fight if you do not like it?" Veltar asked during dinner. The room became quiet. Captain Jiho put down his fork and looked at Veltar with serious eyes. "Because someone has to," Jiho said. "There are bad things in this galaxy that hurt innocent people. If we do not stop them, who will?" Sergeant Do-hyun nodded. "My little sister lives on a colony world. If enemies attack her planet, I want to know that someone will come to help her, so I help others when they need it." Veltar thought about this. His own people lived on peaceful worlds far from danger. They never had to worry about attacks because they were strong and other species left them alone. But what about weaker species? What happened to them when bad things came? After dinner, Lieutenant Nari showed Veltar the bridge where they controlled the ship. The walls were covered with screens showing stars and space. Everything looked very advanced and smart. "We use our brains as much as our weapons," Nari explained. "Good planning saves more lives than big guns." Veltar spent his first night on the human ship thinking about what he had seen. These people were not the violent monsters described in the Council reports. They seemed to care about life and peace. But they were also ready to fight when needed. The next morning, alarms started ringing throughout the ship. Red lights flashed in the hallways. Veltar felt scared, but the humans around him moved quickly and calmly. They knew what to do. Captain Jiho's voice came over the ship's speakers. "All crew to battle stations. We have received a distress call from Kepler Colony. The Catherian swarm has attacked. We are going to help." Veltar watched as the friendly, laughing people from dinner became focused warriors. But even as they prepared for battle, he saw something that surprised him. They were not excited about fighting. They looked sad and determined. This was not a fun game for them. It was a duty they did not want, but would not avoid. Dr. Hayemi prepared the medical bay for wounded people. Sergeant Do-hyun checked his weapons, but also packed extra food and blankets for refugees. Lieutenant Nari studied maps of the colony to find the best way to save civilians. "Are you afraid?" Veltar asked Captain Jiho as they stood on the bridge. Jiho looked out at the stars rushing past them. "Always," he said. "Fear keeps us careful, but fear does not stop us from doing what is right." Veltar realized that his mission was already changing him. He had come to study violent aliens, but he was learning about courage and sacrifice instead. The ship flew through space faster than Veltar had ever traveled before. He could feel the engines shaking the metal floors under his feet. The humans worked without stopping, getting ready for battle. Veltar followed Minho, the communications officer, as he tried to contact the colony. Minho's face was tight with worry. His wife and 2 children lived on Kepler Colony. Every few minutes he would try to call them, but only static came back. "The Catherians always attack communication systems first," Lieutenant Nari explained to Veltar. "They want to stop people from calling for help." Veltar had read about the Catherian swarm in council files. They were insect-like creatures that worked as one giant mind. They ate everything they found, plants, animals, and other thinking beings. To them, all life was just food. "How long until we reach the colony?" Captain Jiho asked from his chair. "On the bridge." 6 hours, replied Young-soo, the chief engineer. "I am pushing the engines as hard as I can without breaking them." Young-soo had not slept in 2 days. His clothes were dirty with oil and sweat. Dark circles surrounded his eyes, but he would not rest. Every minute they saved could mean saving more lives. Veltar watched the crew prepare. They moved like they had done this many times before. Sergeant Do-hyun and his soldiers checked their armor and weapons. Dr. Hayemi and her medical team set up beds for wounded people. Workers loaded supplies onto small attack ships. "How many people live on the colony?" Veltar asked Nari. "About 50,000 humans," she said, looking at her computer screen. "But there are also 20,000 refugees from other worlds, people who lost their homes to the swarm." Veltar was surprised. "Refugees? Humans take care of people from other species?" Nari looked at him strangely. "Of course. Where else would they go?" This was new information for Veltar. The council files never mentioned humans helping other species. They only talked about human violence and war. When they finally reached Kepler Colony, Veltar saw his first real battle. The planet below was covered in smoke and fire. Catherian ships flew around like angry wasps, shooting at anything that moved. The colony's buildings were half destroyed. There, Captain Jiho pointed at his screen. Catherian ground forces are attacking the main refugee camp. We need to get those people out now. Veltar watched through the ship's cameras as human soldiers flew down to the planet in small ships. The Catherians looked like giant bugs with sharp claws and teeth. They were tearing apart buildings and chasing people. Sergeant Do-Yun led his soldiers into the middle of the fighting. Veltar could hear their voices over the radio as they fought to reach the trapped civilians. "There are children in that building," Do-Hyun shouted. "Yunji, take your team and get them out. The rest of us will hold off these bugs." Private Yunji was a small woman, but she ran toward the building without fear. Veltar watched as she and 3 other soldiers fought their way inside. The building was surrounded by Catherians. Above the planet, Lieutenant Nari coordinated attacks from the ship. She had to be very careful. The weapons were powerful enough to destroy the Catherian ships, but they could also hurt the people below. "I cannot shoot there," Nari said, pointing at her screen. "Too many civilians nearby. We need to find another way." Veltar realized that the humans were fighting with one hand tied behind their backs. They could have destroyed the Catherians quickly if they did not care about innocent lives, but they would rather fight harder and lose more soldiers than hurt civilians. On the planet, Private Yunji's voice came over the radio. "I have 30 children and 10 adults trapped in the basement. The building is on fire. I need help getting them out." "Hold on," Sergeant Do-Yun replied. "We are coming." But before help could arrive, more Catherians surrounded the building. Yunji and her team were trapped inside with the civilians. Veltar listened as Yunji talked to her commander. Her voice was calm even though she was in terrible danger. "Sir, there is no way out," she said. "The bugs are breaking down the door, but I can blow up the gas pipes in the basement. It will kill the Catherians around the building and make a safe path for the next rescue team." Veltar understood what she was saying. She would die to save the people with her and make it possible for others to rescue more civilians. "Yunji, no," Do-Hyun said. "We will find another way." "There is no time, sir," Yunji replied. "These children deserve to see their families again." Veltar watched the explosion on the ship's screen. The blast destroyed 6 Catherian warriors and cleared a path through the enemy lines. Yunji and her team were gone, but the children they died protecting were rescued minutes later by another team. The battle continued for hours. Humans fought and died to save people they had never met. Some of the refugees were not even the same species as humans. Veltar saw soldiers risk their lives for bird-like Altarians and gas-based Nebulans. During the fighting, Minho finally got through to his family. His wife and children were alive but scared. Veltar watched tears run down Minho's face as he heard their voices. But Minho did not leave his post. He kept working to coordinate the rescue of other families. By the end of the day, most of the civilians were safe. The Catherian attack was stopped, but 23 human soldiers had died, including Private Yunji. The ship's medical bay was full of wounded people. That night, Captain Jiho held a ceremony for the soldiers who died. The entire crew gathered in the main hall. Jiho spoke about each person who was lost. He talked about Yunji's love for children and her dream of becoming a teacher after the war. Veltar sat in the back and watched. The humans cried for their friends, but they also seemed proud. They had saved thousands of lives. After the ceremony, Dr. Hayemi found Veltar sitting alone in his room. He was writing notes about what he had seen, but his hands were shaking. "This was your first time seeing war," she said gently. Veltar nodded. He could not find words to describe what he felt. "It never gets easier," Dr. Hayemi said. "The day we stop feeling sad about death is the day we become monsters. But we keep fighting, because the alternative is worse." Veltar looked at her. "How can you live with so much pain?" Dr. Hayemi smiled sadly. "Because for every person who dies in battle, 100 others get to live in peace. That is what makes it worth it." As Veltar tried to sleep that night, he thought about Private Yunji and the children she saved. He thought about Minho working while worried about his family. He thought about Captain Jiho making hard choices to protect people he would never meet. These humans were not the simple, violent creatures described in the council reports. They were something much more complicated and frightening. They were people who chose to carry terrible burdens so others would not have to. 3 weeks after the battle at Kepler Colony, Veltar began to see what war really did to humans. The ship felt different now. People still worked and talked, but something had changed. The laughter was quieter. The smiles did not last as long. Commander. Seokjin was the worst. He had led a squadron of 12 fighter ships during the battle. Only 6 came back. Veltar often saw him staring out the windows at empty space. During the day, Seokjin was a strong leader, but at night, when he thought no one was watching, he would cry. Veltar followed Seokjin one evening after dinner. The commander went to the ship's small garden room where they grew food. He sat among the green plants and pulled out a small device that showed pictures. Photos of his dead pilots appeared in the air above the device. "I should have sent them a different way," Seokjin whispered to the pictures. "I should have been smarter." Veltar wanted to leave, but Seokjin noticed him. "Hello, observer," Seokjin said, quickly turning off the device. "Did you need something?" "I am sorry," Veltar said. "I did not mean to bother you." Seokjin was quiet for a moment. Then he turned the device back on. The pictures of his pilots appeared again. "This is Pilot Taewon," he said, pointing to a young man with a big smile. "He loved to sing old songs from Earth. This is Pilot Sujin. She was going to marry her girlfriend after the war." Seokjin told Veltar about each pilot who died. He knew everything about them, their families, their dreams, their favorite foods. Veltar realized that human commanders did not just lose soldiers, they lost friends. "How do you keep leading when it hurts so much?" Veltar asked. Seokjin looked at the pictures one more time before turning off the device. "Because if I stop, more people like them will die. The pain reminds me to be better next time." The next day, alarms rang through the ship again. This time, the emergency was bigger. The Catherian swarm was attacking the Terran system, the place where humans first came from. Every human world was in danger. Dr. Hayemi had been working without rest since the last battle. Her hands shook when she held medical tools. Her eyes were red from not sleeping. But when the new emergency started, she began preparing for even more wounded people. Veltar watched her organize medicines and equipment. She moved like a machine, checking everything twice. But he noticed that she dropped things more often now. Her body was tired, but her mind would not let her stop. You need to rest, Veltar told her. Dr. Hyemi laughed, but it was not a happy sound. Rest? When people are dying? I will rest when the war is over. But you might make mistakes if you are too tired, Veltar said. Dr. Hyemi stopped working and looked at him. Every minute I rest, someone might die because I was not ready to help them. I can live with being tired. I cannot live with knowing I failed to save someone. Corporal Jawan was dealing with a different kind of pain. It was his job to write letters to the families of dead soldiers. After every battle, he had to find words to tell parents that their children were gone. He had to tell wives that their husbands would not come home. Veltar found Jiwan in a small office, writing on a day computer. Hundreds of letters were saved on the screen. Each one was different, personal. Dear Mrs. Park, Jiwan read out loud as he typed. Your daughter Yunji died saving 30 children from the Catherian attack. She was brave and kind. The last thing she said was that the children deserved to see their families again. Jiwan stopped typing and put his head in his hands. How do I tell her mother that her daughter is gone? What words make that hurt less? Veltar watched Jiwan work on letter after letter. Each one took a long time because Jiwan made sure to include something special about each person who died. He wrote about their jokes, their kindness, their dreams. He made sure every family knew their loved one mattered. When human ships from across the galaxy arrived to defend the Terran system, Veltar saw how big the human military really was. There were hundreds of ships commanded by people like Admiral Sunwoo, an old man who should have stopped fighting years ago. His hair was white and his back was bent, but he still led battles because younger commanders needed his wisdom. Captain Minji was the opposite, a young woman commanding her first big battle. Veltar watched her make quick decisions while explosions lit up space around her ship. She was scared, but she did not let fear stop her from protecting her crew. The battle for the Terran system was the biggest fight Veltar had ever seen. Thousands of ships shot at each other while planets burned below. The Catherians had brought their largest fleet. They wanted to destroy the human home worlds completely. During the worst part of the battle, Engineer Kangmin made a choice that shocked Veltar. His ship was badly damaged and surrounded by Catherian vessels. Instead of trying to escape, Kangmin sent his crew away in escape pods. Then he flew his ship straight into a Catherian mothership. Veltar listened to Kangmin's last radio message. Tell my wife I kept my promise. Tell her the universe is safe for our daughter. The explosion when Kangmin's ship hit the Catherian mothership was like a small star. It destroyed the enemy command ship and confused the swarm long enough for human forces to win the battle. After the fighting ended, Veltar walked through the ship's hallways. He saw humans crying for their dead friends. He saw others writing more letters to more families. He saw Dr. Hyemi finally collapse from exhaustion after working for 40 hours straight. But he also saw something else. Despite their pain and exhaustion, the humans were already planning the next battle. They were already thinking about how to protect more people. Their sadness did not make them give up. It made them more determined. That night, Veltar could not sleep. He kept thinking about Kangmin flying into the enemy ship with a smile. He thought about Dr. Hyemi working until she collapsed. He thought about Jiwan writing personal letters to hundreds of families. These humans did not fight because they loved violence. They fought because they loved everything else. They were willing to be hurt, to be tired, to be sad, so that others could be safe and happy. Veltar began to understand something that scared him. The humans were not the monsters in this story. They were the heroes. And if they were the heroes, what did that make everyone else? What did that make Veltar's own people, who lived in peace while others suffered? What did that make the Galactic Council, who sent observers to judge, but never sent help? For the first time since coming aboard the human ship, Veltar felt ashamed. Not of what he was seeing, but of what he was not doing. 1 month after the battle for the Terran system, Veltar made a discovery that changed everything he thought he knew. He was in the ship's computer room trying to understand human military records when he found files marked classified. His observer status gave him access to these secret documents. The first file he opened was about the Zephyrian species. Veltar had never heard of them before. The file contained pictures of beautiful, peaceful creatures that looked similar to his own people. They had lived on a green world with floating cities and crystal gardens. The file explained that 3 years ago, the Catherian swarm had found the Zephyrian homeworld. In just 2 days, every Zephyrian was dead. Their cities were destroyed. Their planet was stripped of all life. The swarm ate everything and moved on. Veltar read further. The Galactic Council had known about the attack while it was happening. They received distress calls from the Zephyrians begging for help. The Council had held meetings and debates for 3 days. By the time they decided to consider military action, there was no one left to save. But humans had tried to help. Even though they were new to the galaxy and had small ships, they sent everything they could. Human vessels arrived just in time to rescue a few hundred Zephyrian ships that were running away. Those refugees were still living on human worlds. The next file made Veltar feel sick. It was about his own people, the Ethereals. The file showed that humans had sent messages to the Ethereal government asking for help against the Catherian swarm. The humans explained that the swarm was getting bigger and stronger with every species they destroyed. The Ethereal government's response was cold and simple. This matter does not concern us. We advise humans to seek peaceful solutions to their conflicts. Veltar remembered those debates in the Ethereal Council chambers. He had been there when the leaders decided that human problems were not their responsibility. They said that getting involved in violence would corrupt their pure society, but the files showed more. Humans had been quietly protecting the galaxy for decades. They had saved the crystalline Altarians when their sun began to die, bringing them to new worlds. They had defended the gaseous Nebulans when corporations tried to steal their home. Nebula for fuel. They had shared their medical technology with dozens of species, saving millions of lives. Veltar found video records of human soldiers fighting and dying to protect people they had never met. He saw humans giving their own food to hungry aliens. He saw human doctors working without pay to cure diseases on distant worlds. All of this happened while other species lived in comfortable peace, never knowing or caring about the dangers around them. The most shocking file was a report about the current war. It explained that humans had not started fighting the Catherians to protect their own people. The swarm had never attacked a human world first. Humans declared war after the Zephyrian genocide because they refused to let it happen again. No species should face extinction alone, read a quote from the human president. If we allow one genocide, we invite all genocides. Veltar felt like he was drowning. Everything he had been taught about humans was wrong. Everything he believed about his own people was wrong. The civilized species of the galaxy were not civilized at all. They were cowards hiding behind human sacrifice. He decided to interview human veterans to learn more. Master Sergeant Hajun had fought in wars for 40 years. He was an old man now, with scars covering his arms and sadness in his eyes. "Why do you keep fighting?" Veltar asked him. Hajun thought for a long time before answering. "When I was young, I thought we fought to win. But after 40 years I know we fight so others do not have to. Every battle we fight is a battle someone else's children will not face." Hajun told Veltar about the wars most people never heard about. The rescue of slave colonies, the defense of primitive species who could not defend themselves, the long, quiet patrol missions to keep space lanes safe for peaceful travelers. "The galaxy is full of good people," Hajun said, "but good people need protection from bad people. Most species do not want to be protectors. We understand that, so we do it for them." Colonel Suyan had a different perspective. She was a strategic planner who organized refugee rescues and humanitarian missions. "Do you know how many species we have saved from extinction?" she asked Veltar. 47. "Do you know how many of them have thanked us publicly?" 3. "Do you know how many have offered to help us fight the swarm?" 0. Suyan showed Veltar maps of human patrol routes. Human ships flew dangerous missions through swarm territory to evacuate threatened worlds. They delivered food to planets hit by disasters. They hunted pirates and slavers in the dark spaces between stars. "We do not do this for thanks," Suyan said. "We do it because it is right, but sometimes I wonder what would happen if we stopped. How long would the peace last if humans were not standing guard?" Private Wubin was young, only 20 years old. He had never known a time when humans were not at war. But his question to Veltar was the hardest to answer. "Why do not your people help us?" Wubin asked. "We die every day protecting the galaxy. Your people are strong and smart. You could save so many lives if you fought beside us. But you choose to stay safe while we bleed." Veltar had no answer. What could he say? That his people believed violence was wrong? That they thought their pure society was more important than other people's lives? That they preferred to let humans die rather than risk their own peace? "We believe in nonviolence," Veltar finally said. But the words sounded weak and selfish. Wubin nodded sadly. "I understand. Peace is important. But someone has to stand between peace and the things that would destroy it. Someone has to be willing to get dirty so others can stay clean." That night, Veltar recorded a message to send back to the Galactic Council. But instead of the report they wanted, he spoke the truth. "I was sent to study human violence," he said to the camera. "But I have learned that we are the violent ones. We commit violence through our silence. We kill through our inaction. We are murderers who have clean hands because humans have bloody ones." Veltar deleted the message without sending it. He was not ready to face what it meant, but he could not unknow what he had learned. The humans were not savage warriors. They were the galaxy's immune system, fighting diseases that others refused to acknowledge. They bled so others could live. They died so others could sleep safely. And species like Veltar's lived comfortable lives built on human sacrifice, never admitting that their peace had a price that others were paying. For the first time in his life, Veltar understood what evil really looked like. It was not the Catherian swarm eating everything in their path. It was good people choosing to do nothing while others suffered. It was peace built on someone else's war. It was Veltar's own reflection in the mirror. The final battle came sooner than anyone expected. Intelligence reports revealed that the Catherian swarm had built a massive fortress on a dead world at the edge of the galaxy. But this was not just a military base. It was a prison planet where they kept captured beings from dozens of species, using them for horrible experiments. The Galactic Council met to discuss the situation. Veltar watched the debate through a video link from the human ship. Council members talked about economic, sanctions, and diplomatic protests. They argued about jurisdiction and proper procedures. Some suggested that a rescue mission might anger the swarm and make things worse. Meanwhile, the prisoners on the fortress world were dying every day. Captain Jiho turned off the video feed and looked at his crew. The council will debate for months. While people suffer, we cannot wait for permission to do what is right. Veltar realized that this was how humans always operated. While others talked, humans acted. While others worried about politics, humans worried about lives. The fortress world was protected by a maze of defensive systems. Getting close enough to land troops would require flying through waves of enemy fire. Many ships would be destroyed. Many humans would die. "Sir," said pilot Taehyun, "I can fly my squadron through their defenses, but we will not all make it back." Captain Jiho nodded. "I know. Are you willing?" Taehyun smiled. "Those prisoners have been waiting long enough." Veltar watched the preparations with growing amazement and horror. Every human on the ship knew this mission would cost lives. Every one of them volunteered anyway. They did not have to save these prisoners. Most of the captives were not even human, but that did not matter to them. Demolitions expert Heejin loaded her ships with explosives to destroy the prison camp's walls. Medic Ji-young prepared to work in active combat zones to treat freed prisoners who might be dying from Catherian experiments. Communications officer Minho set up equipment to guide refugees to safety. "Why are you doing this?" Veltar asked Lieutenant Guang-ho as the young officer checked his weapons. Guang-ho looked confused by the question. "Because they need help. Is there a better reason?" The attack began at dawn. Veltar watched from the ship's bridge as human fighters flew into the storm of enemy fire. Explosions lit up space like deadly fireworks. Ships disappeared in flashes of light as Catherian weapons found their targets. Pilot Taehyun's voice came over the radio as he led his squadron through the defenses. "Phoenix leader to all units, remember, we are not here to win a battle. We are here to save lives. Stay focused on the mission." 3 of his 12 ships were destroyed in the first attack run, but the rest broke through. They landed near the main prison complex and began their assault on the fortress. On the planet's surface, Sergeant Do-yun led his soldiers through the alien prison camps. The conditions were worse than anything in Veltar's nightmares. Catherian. Scientists had been cutting apart prisoners to study different species biology. Some captives had been infected with swarm DNA to create new types of soldiers. But the humans did not hesitate. They fought their way through guard after guard to reach the prison cells. Veltar listened to their radio messages as they found survivors. "I have 50 Altarian crystals in Section B," reported one soldier. "They are weak but alive." "Found a group of nebulan gas forms in containment tanks," said another. "Getting them to emergency transport now." The fighting was brutal. The Catherians fought desperately to protect their research. They released their experimental soldier creatures to attack the human rescue teams. But the humans kept pushing forward, room by room, cell by cell. Lieutenant Guang-ho was leading a team to rescue prisoners in the deepest part of the fortress when they were surrounded by Catherian warriors. Veltar heard the battle over the radio. Explosions and weapon fire mixed with human voices shouting orders. "Sir, we are trapped," one of Guang-ho's soldiers reported. "Too many bugs between us and the exit." Guang-ho's voice was calm, even though he was in terrible danger. How many prisoners are with us? 37, sir. Mixed species. Some are badly hurt. Then we hold this position until help arrives, Guang Ho said. These people have suffered enough. The battle lasted for hours. Guang Ho and his team fought, off wave after wave of attacks. When they ran out of ammunition, they used knives and tools. When they ran out of weapons, they used their fists. Veltar listened as Guang Ho was mortally wounded protecting a group of alien children. As he lay dying, his last words were not about victory or defeat. "Tell my daughter that the universe is worth protecting," he whispered into his radio. "Tell her that good people exist in every species and they deserve a chance to be happy." By the end of the day, the fortress was destroyed. Nearly 2 million prisoners were freed, beings from over 60 different species who had been given up for dead. But the cost was terrible. Half of the human ships were destroyed. Thousands of soldiers died, including Lieutenant Guang Ho. The rescue ships flew away from the burning fortress world. Veltar sat in his quarters and stared at his computer screen. He had been writing his final report for weeks, but now he knew what it had to say. He began typing. "I was sent to observe human military tactics and report on their capacity for violence. Instead, I discovered something that has broken my understanding of civilization and morality. Humans are not the savage warriors described in our files. They are the only species in this galaxy brave enough to pay the real price of peace. While we debate and discuss, they bleed and die. While we worry about our own comfort, they sacrifice everything for strangers. The most terrifying thing about humanity is not their weapons or their anger. It is their limitless capacity for sacrifice. They will die for people they have never met. They will fight battles they cannot win if it means others will be safe. They have become the galaxy's guardians not through conquest, but through an inexplicable willingness to suffer so others will not have to. I have learned that every peaceful night I have ever slept was paid for with human blood. Every safe journey I have taken was protected by human soldiers. Every freedom I have enjoyed exists because humans were willing to fight for it. We call ourselves civilized because we do not fight wars, but humans fight wars so we do not have to. We call ourselves peaceful because we solve problems with words, but humans solve problems with their lives so our words have meaning. The I. Galaxy is full of species like mine, good people who want to live in peace. But goodness without courage is worthless. Peace without protection is a lie. We have built a paradise for ourselves by choosing blindness to others' suffering. Humans did not choose to be warriors because they love violence. They chose to be warriors because someone had to, and we were too cowardly to share that burden. I wish I had never been sent to observe this war, not because of what I saw humans do, but because of what I learned about the rest of us. I can never again enjoy the peace of my home world, knowing how much it costs and who is paying that price. The humans call themselves monsters when they kill, but the real monsters are the rest of us, the ones who let them fight alone." Veltar finished his report and prepared to send it to the Galactic Council. He knew it would not change anything immediately. Most species would continue to live in comfortable ignorance while humans died to protect them. But maybe someone would read his words and understand. Maybe someone would realize that peace has a price and that others should help pay it. Maybe someone would choose to stand beside humanity instead of behind them. 3 days later, Veltar's transport ship arrived to take him home. As he prepared to leave the human vessel, Captain Jiho came to say goodbye. "Thank you for watching us," Jiho said. "I hope you learned something useful." Veltar looked at this man who had shown him such kindness while carrying such terrible burdens. I learned that I have been living a lie my whole life. I learned that my people are cowards. I learned that heroes look nothing like I expected them to. Captain Jiho smiled sadly. Heroes are just people who do what needs to be done when no one else will. Maybe someday your people will choose to be heroes too. As Veltar's ship flew away from the human vessel, he watched it grow smaller in the distance. Soon he would be back on his peaceful world, surrounded by beauty and comfort. But he would never be the same. He had seen the price of paradise, and he could never forget it.